Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rock Bottom Alchemy Podcast. My name is Tiffany. I'm your host. If you're a returning listener, hello. Welcome back. I'm glad that you're here. If this is your first time tuning in, I'm so glad you found us. And stay a while. If you've got any messiness, any low in your life that you're looking to alchemize, maybe I can help you do that. The point of the podcast is just that, to reach down, not look down, to shed light and love on people who may find themselves in a place of darkness and could use a little bit of love, inspiration, or kick in the butt. The tenets that we stand on here are truth, beauty, freedom, love, growth, learning, censorship-free information sharing, reaching our highest timeline, ascending our souls, digging into mysteries and occult. There's really no holds barred here on this podcast. We dig into anything and everything which is human and maybe a little bit outer space. Guys, without further ado, this episode, it's going to be a little bit specific. Not everybody is going to need this episode right now, but should you ever find yourself in this situation, maybe you'll reference back to it. And if you are in this situation currently, I hope that I can give you some little nuggets, some little bits of inspiration, some light to hold on to know that you will make it through this point. This episode is very near and dear to my heart. We are going to be talking about fight, flight, freeze. And now specifically, we're going to be talking about freeze. Often, fight, flight, and freeze are clumped together. They are the trauma responses, right? If you're going through something dangerous or scary, or somewhere where you have a lack of freedom to make changes, or just a perceived lack of freedom to make changes to better your circumstance, we often hear fight, flight, or freeze. I wanted to talk about the freeze because one of my very lowest points in life, one of the scariest places I've ever found myself, was in freeze. And what I learned during and after is that freeze is a category all in its own. Freeze is its own bear to deal with. Now, fight or flight, what is that? That is our arousal. That is our fight response. That is fleeing danger. It is to protect our life. It's built into our primitive nervous system. It's our sympathetic nervous system response. It's also used in athleticism. It's used in high performance moments, meant to be a burst of energy. It's a sprint. It's to protect yourself and then get to safety and re-regulate. We are not meant to stay in fight or flight, but our bodies often don't know the difference between real and perceived danger. For instance, when we hear something on the news that scares us, it might not apply to us, right? And often we hear things on the news that don't come true, that have nothing to do with us. I call it fear corn, right? It instills a sense of unsafety within us. When that happens, even if it's not immediately affecting us, we feel the sense of danger, we perceive the sense of danger, and our brain will start flooding our body with hormones, cortisol, adrenaline. That is an example of going into fight or flight, even when there's no imminent danger. Just hearing something scary can put you into a state of fight or flight. Now, there's more serious situations. There are more tangible situations. Tangible as in, maybe you have a hostile work environment. Nobody's laying hands on you. You don't actually need to run, but there's an undertone, right? There's an undercurrent of lack of safety. Maybe you're being targeted. Maybe you're being bullied. This can happen as a child. It can happen in your own home if your emotional needs are not being met, if you express yourself to your parents and they criticize you as a child, if they shame you, if you perceive a lack of safety, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, religious trauma can bring on fight or flight. And another example would be threats to your safety. Maybe you live with a significant other who is comfortable putting their hands on you. That would be an example of real, tangible, palpable fight or flight. But in all of these cases, what I'm getting at is that the hormone release is the same. Your body is perceiving danger and it's sending signals to release adrenaline, cortisol. It's sending blood to certain muscles and organs and not to other ones, all right? That is fight or flight in a nutshell. This episode, how you're going to know if it's for you, is if any of that resonated with you, that you feel, yes, I have found myself in a fight or flight state for longer than I think is natural or comfortable. Remember, fight or flight is meant to be a burst. Throughout your day, before we jump into the next piece, I want to just give you a scale from 0 to 10. 0 is your rest, your sleep, your meditation, sunbathing in the sun, getting a massage. 0 is when your parasympathetic nervous system is in charge. We haven't talked about that yet. Your parasympathetic, what is that? That is your rest and relaxation mode. You're a 0 out of 10. You are resting. Your sympathetic, the fight or flight that we just discussed, that is 10 out of 10. That is, I'm in danger. I need to run. All right? You are not meant to hit a 10 on a daily basis. You are not meant to hit a 10 or be pinging off from it. You're not meant to be hitting the rev limiter, 7, 8, 9, 10, 7, 8, 9. You're not meant to be in those high ranges. It's very detrimental to your health to be in those high ranges for extended periods of time. Okay? When you hit the 10, it's supposed to save your life, and then you re-regulate. And throughout the day, obviously we can't sleep all day long if we want to be productive and achieve our goals and have a happy balance. So we're also not meant to be at the 0. The two ends are meant to keep each other in homeostasis. We should be in a flow state. You might find the flow at maybe a 3. You're awake, you're aroused, you're present, but you're not scared. You're not in danger. All right? How you're going to know this episode is for you is if fight or flight resonated with you and you feel that you've dipped into something deeper. You've gone a little further. Something has changed where you used to feel scared or like you felt like you had control to better your circumstances and you were actively trying to. In the example of bullying or an abusive relationship, this would be sticking up for yourself still. Maybe you're arguing your point. Maybe you're trying to make effort to get away from the perceived or real danger. The freeze state is where you move into something a little heavier. You stop feeling not just the motivation, but the ability to improve the circumstance. And when a human being feels that they cannot improve their circumstance, they move into what we call the freeze state. It's a category of its own. The body actually has its own fail-safe system. Now, we talked about that rest state. Your body can pull an alarm. If you are in fight or flight too long, your body will pull an alarm. And involuntarily, you will move into freeze. It's not a choice. It's not laziness. And I believe that when people say depression, a lot of times the depression is a byproduct of your nervous system shutting down. I believe the freeze happens first in a lot of people. My very lowest, my furthest rock bottom that I ever went involved a complete nervous system shutdown, a freeze state. At the time, I did not really know what it was. I didn't know what was going on. All I knew is I couldn't take care of the most basic of tasks. You're going to know if you're in the freeze state probably by the ways that the symptoms are manifesting in your life. Now, freeze state, we can describe it two different ways. We could talk about it on the biological, physiological level, or we can speak on how it manifests in your day-to-day. We're going to go over both, and I'll give you some tidbits, some ways that I started healing myself out of this. I guess we'll start with the real life ways that this affects you, because you're going to know. When I start reading these off, you're going to be like, either yes, this is me, or no, it's not. The freeze state, like I said, it has a lot less to do with choice and a lot more to do with your body forcing you into this state. Your body is saying, okay, you've been through a lot. You need to rest. I liken this to you are a hiker on Mount Everest and it's really intense and a blizzard comes through and you're fighting. Maybe you've stopped hiking and you've put up your tent and you're just trying to make it through. The wind's ripping your tent and you're holding it down. The tent gets ripped away from you. You're still in the blizzard. Now an avalanche comes through, but your head is above the snow. You're buried chest deep in snow. You're exhausted. You can't move. You can't fight anymore. And so, as a protective mechanism, your brain and your body say, okay, we're going to shut things down. We're going to slow things down. You're going to start conserving energy. We're going to dissociate your mind so that this is not so traumatizing for you. And we're going to send energetic resources to just your primitive functions. We're going to keep you going, but you're not going to be able to think very well. You're not going to be able to reason. You're not going to have much energy to do much of anything. And in fact, you're going to be quite lethargic. All right? We're keeping you alive, and that's about it. And you guys, not to scare you, but sometimes when we are in a very self-harming cycle, and a lot of times we don't realize, even in the state of freeze, there are still options. There are still ways that we can move through it. In the freeze, we might not see it, all right? Not to scare you, but trigger warning. Often the freeze is defined as one of the body's last resorts. It's your body, in a way, is preparing for death. It sees that there's danger, but it doesn't see a way out. All right? When you are in this state, you might find yourself isolating, staying in bed, not making future plans, extremely overwhelmed by simple tasks. I'm talking brushing your hair, brushing your teeth, getting in the shower, changing your clothes, doing your laundry, showing up for your job. Tasks become insurmountable, the most basic of tasks. You might be shaming yourself. Why do I keep starting projects and not finishing them? You might find yourself wearing the same clothes for multiple days, You might be sitting in your car, just parked for long periods of time. You might be lacking enthusiasm, not just for anything, but even your favorite things. Hours could pass without you doing anything. You could binge watch a show and not remember any of it. Go for a drive and not remember the drive. You could listen to a song or a podcast, no matter how much you love the topic or the speaker, and you totally zone out and realize you haven't been intaking the information or processing anything, so you have to keep restarting. You could be avoiding decision making. You might have newfound sensory sensitivity, like suddenly lights and noises are bothering you. Extreme lethargy. But when you try to go to sleep, you're super wired. The fight, flight, freeze, when you hit that freeze state, your nervous system, right, has taken over. It has shut things down. The reason why this is so severe is often when you're in this incapacitated state, right? All of these things that we just listed off, it's more than just a little bit sad. It's more than functionally getting through your day. It's you've stopped participating in life. You've stopped showing up for yourself. And when you do that, you are putting yourself unknowingly, your body has put you in this day and age. If you can't show up, you're in danger now of poverty, homelessness. That literally happened to me while I was in the process of unfreezing myself, while I was in the process of thawing. I myself was not quite back online and wound up homeless. So I know firsthand how serious this is, how detrimental it is. The way that it manifests, okay, so those are some of the functional ways, right? Those are the ways that it's gonna show up in your life. A couple other are intrusive thoughts, feeling disconnected, having like cognition issues, feeling like your mind isn't working quite right, like you can't remember anything, you're not really processing information. You might know what you want, you can lay there and you can visualize what you want out of your life, but you can't possibly think of how to get from A to C. When you try to think of B, the action, the how are we doing it, your brain just kind of pieces out. It goes to sleep. It's not present. Which kind of leads into the more physiological symptoms that I wanted to discuss. As I mentioned, your body will push you into the primitive state and it will dissociate you to protect you so you're not getting traumatized any further. This is, I would say, probably the most debilitating of all of the symptoms, because a lot of the ways that it manifests in your life, the sitting in your car for long periods, the not listening to things that people say and just kind of zoning out, it ties into a very real nervous system shutdown, which your body dissociates for you to protect you. So you've got the term called dissociation, which defined means a lack of continuation between thoughts, memories, surroundings, actions, and identity. Dissociation, it can be broken down into two categories: depersonalization and derealization. Depersonalization is when you don't feel attached to yourself. Derealization is when you don't feel connected to your environment, to your surroundings. So just some examples. You might feel detached from your body, your mental processes, kind of like you're watching yourself in a movie. You could have reduced emotions. You might not recognize yourself in the mirror. You could be losing time. You could lose track of the day of the week. You could lose track of what month you're in. Depersonalization, detaching from your own thoughts and feelings. Derealization, detaching from the world around you where everyone else is kind of foggy and dreamlike and distorted, and you're just kind of in your own little bubble. So that's the big one. I like to talk about it because it really ties into both sides. It controls how things are manifesting in your life or the lack thereof, but it's also a very real bodily shutdown. It's out of your control. And at this point, you might be seeking help. You might be looking for antidepressants. You might be looking for therapy. And not every therapist is created equal. And when you are very incapacitated, we'll say, when you are lethargic and have low energy, even just searching for a therapist, it's no easy feat. You call around. Who accepts your insurance? Who has availability? Who matches your personality? Who has the tools in their tool belt that you yourself need? Is it DBT? Is it cognitive behavioral therapy? Is it EMDR? There's all these different modalities. And anyway, by the time you find someone that matches up with you, you might not have the energy to show up to that appointment. Okay? This shutdown state is very serious because you don't have many resources energetically for achieving and performing and following through. Aside from what's going on with your mind, your cognitive struggle, you could be struggling with your speech, forming coherent sentences, forming full thoughts. You could be in a state of confusion, depression, hopelessness, low muscle tone. Low muscle tone is associated with a parasympathetic state, and it makes sense because a lot of people who are in the freeze state find themselves in bed a lot, not moving, a lot of sleeping, migraines, low heart rate. Like I said, your body is running on the bare minimum. Your immune system is tied into your nervous system heavily. Another way that this freeze state is defined, there's a term called the dorsal vagal shutdown. Your vagus nerve runs from your brainstem all through your throat, your heart, your organs, your stomach. This vagus nerve, when your body goes into the parasympathetic freeze state, it shuts down the whole front side of the vagus nerve and a portion of the back, the dorsal side of your vagus nerve. When your immune system is tied so closely to a nerve, and that nerve darn near goes offline, you will also have unexplained autoimmune conditions. You will have unexplained body-wide chronic pain. You will have tingling and numbness and heaviness in your limbs. You could have a generally weakened immune system. You get infections very easily. You could have gut issues. So it's more than depression, right? You're having it's like red alert. Your entire body is shutting down. You're kind of wondering, where is my body gone? Where has my mind gone? The freeze state is so debilitating, guys. Yes, I know that our episodes are high vibe. We're getting to that part. But because a person who slips into the freeze state is in, honestly, quite a dangerous place, if I do say so, I feel it's important to discuss the heaviness first, because it's very real, and I don't want to invalidate anybody's experiences. I went through this myself. It takes concerted effort to pull yourself out of it, and I really do mean that. Another thing If you've ever heard the expression trauma eyes, I've seen it on TikTok. I don't know how long it's been around, but trauma eyes, it's where the person, they say that you can tell somebody's been traumatized. If you look at their eyes, they're no longer wide open and bright, they're lower. And that's because during the freeze, the shutdown, which if you've been heavily traumatized, you are likely to have either been in or are currently experiencing the shutdown. You'll have the flattened effect on your face, which is just another way that your body conserves energy. You don't need to make expressions on your face if you are conserving energy. And so your face changes. Your muscles lose tone, your face will droop, and it's darn near impossible to make expressions. It's not that you don't want to, it's just that you don't have the energy. So you stop smiling, you stop opening your eyes as far. All right, guys, that's the heavier part, right? Now, how do we get out of it? Because like I said, I found that it was more serious, it was different, it was multifaceted. And when I went for help from doctors, from my primary, I went to a rheumatologist for the body-wide pain that I was having. When I tried to talk about what was going on with people, nobody really had the time, and it seems like nobody was able to pinpoint exactly what it was. That is why it took me so long to find myself pointed in the right direction. And that's why I'm excited about this episode, is to point you in the direction of healing if this resonates with you. The best thing that I can recommend is working on your nervous system. Now, if you are in fight or flight, that is your nervous system responding. When you go into a shutdown, that is your nervous system responding even further. It's saying, well, our first try to get you to get away from this didn't help, so we're shutting you down. Essentially, you need to reverse engineer what happened to you. So if you're in a shutdown right now, you are very, very, very traumatized. And the only way out is through. So you sort of have to be okay with bringing yourself online enough to deal with the fight or flight situation, and then you can move through your healing. And guys, I do have a course on this. I started making courses alongside the podcast because I think that if you find yourself deep in the mud, sometimes you need a little more than a podcast. And because I went through all of these things firsthand myself, guys, I have a great deal of love and empathy for people lost in the sauce, stuck in the darkness that can kind of fall over your mind and your hope for the future. I want you to know that you can make it through all of this darkness. It's just going to take a lot of love for yourself. So as far as your nervous system, as far as bringing it back online, your antidepressant, your meds, I'm not a doctor, all right? So I can't give medical advice, but I'm also not here to sugarcoat. Personally, I was put on a couple of different meds, and I found them to be more detrimental to my process. They created new health problems. They did nothing to help my current problems. They are a Band-Aid of sorts. Antidepressants, a lot of them are SSRIs. They are serotonin reuptake inhibitors. And what that means is that they prevent your happy hormones from being recycled in natural fashion. They keep the happy hormones present for an unnaturally long amount of time to try to make you feel better. And when we feel better, sometimes we're more productive and it can be a cycle, so it can help get you out. But I believe in creating a life that brings you happy hormones. And you have a life with natural happy hormones first when you're not in danger, when your body is not perceiving that you need to fight or flee in your daily life. If you are engaging in anything on a daily basis that makes you feel like you need to escape, and maybe it's subconscious, but if your mind perceives, if your body senses that you are not safe, if you are listening to news every single day that makes you feel unsafe, uncertain, if you are living in a home where you are gaslit, mocked, made fun of, invalidated, if you are bullied in your workplace, in your school, these are going to be a hindrance to your healing. It's very challenging to come out of the freeze state while you have active trauma, active danger being perceived. So that is your first assignment. Sometimes the first is the hardest, right? They say first is worst. Well, if you're committed to your healing, y'all, the first thing that I want you to do is come to terms with getting fiercely protective over your life, your journey, what you are here to do on this earth, which, in case you forgot, you have a soul inside of this skin suit. You're more than your skin suit. You may have chosen to come here if you believe in that kind of thing. And if you think about it that way, would your soul have chosen to come here and just crumple up in misery? Or did your soul come here to adventure, to experience life, the earth, relationships, of course, loss, but these lows remind us when we're up at the highs to be grateful and for the beauty, so that we absorb it so fully. Your soul did not choose to come here to be in despair, to be broken. And if you are in despair, if you've been wallowing, if you've been lost, if it's been dark for a long time, great. Then your success story is going to be so cool. You can't stay in a low forever. That's not how this works. It only works like that if you allow it to be so. So, your first assignment is to take your life journey very seriously, in an unserious type of way, to unbind yourself from the heaviness that's around you. Now, for me, like personally, this was, I say, the hard part and the easy part. When I was frozen and I started catching on, I was like, all right, I'm not going to be able to heal from this when I have people speaking down to me like I'm stupid on a daily basis. Occasionally, there were a couple of people, 2 people in my life that felt comfortable. One of them would physically put their hands on me, and another would raise their hand at me as if they were about to. But they would also start arguments. They would corner me just to instigate, to ignite, to inflame. And it was never enough. There was never resolution. I was mocked for my facial expressions or lack thereof. I was mocked for my body, my posture, how I stood, how I looked, how I innately was, my essence. If you are in an environment where you are being torn down, mocked, torn apart for who you are, you're not going to be able to heal there. So, an end. If I need to bring up the trigger warning statement again, freeze is a state that your body goes into as a last resort. Your body is conserving energy. It's actually that serious. Okay? So, at this state, your options are to stay in the environment that your body and mind perceive to be dangerous, or to take a stand for yourself and remove yourself from every source of outside harm. And I mean every. If you listen to things that scare you, if you put earbuds in and what you hear gets your heart racing, stop listening to that stuff. Listen to something different. At this point, here's a piece of advice, because that was happening to me. I started doing an audit, an inventory. What is raising my heart rate? What makes me feel nervous butterflies in my stomach? Every time I experienced that, I thought to myself, do I usually experience this feeling when doing this activity or being around this person? And if the answer was yes, I started making cutoffs. So if you're listening to things that stress you out, that's your first assignment. Switch what you're listening to. Do you have to listen to the news every day? Could you listen to healing frequencies? Could you listen to a positive podcaster? Could you listen to uplifting music? Think about the music from your childhood, your teenage years. Is there music that you can call upon if you must listen to music? Are there things that you can put into your ears that make you happier than what you listen to now? And as far as the people around you, depending on who they are, what they mean to you, how close they are to you, how long they've been around, you might want to give them a chance or two and let them know, hey, I'm changing my life. I'm looking to heal. I've been physically and mentally unwell, and I think it has a lot to do with what I expose myself to, the things I've been going through. And it's unbearable to me. And so as much as it pains me to lose people or relationships, I can only have healthy ones in my life. People who speak highly of me and to me. People who speak life and love over me, not mockery and destruction. People who expect good things of me and for me. People who want to see me thrive just like I want to see them thrive. You know, if you need to give a little speech to someone, if you need to give them a chance, because like attracts like. All right, so if you've been low vibrational and you may find yourself with a lot of low vibrational relationships around you, and when you choose to heal, if the people around you are not also actively seeking to raise their vibration and improve their circumstance and change their ways, then you might get some heavy pushback. A lot of times we find ourselves in very low, scared, frozen states if it involves people around us, because they are parasitic, because you have a light that they see, and when they're able to dim your light through criticism, comments, gossip, it's a way of gaining energy for themselves. All right, so not everybody around you is going to be happy to see you heal. Like if you are very sick, I'm talking even with like bedridden, autoimmune disorders, struggling with your speech, struggling with your cognition, you'd be surprised. There were people even in my circle who didn't want better than that for me. And when I started working for better than that, it was like the crabs in a bucket analogy. They weren't happy for me. They were angry with me and they let me know. They discouraged me. And so if you have crabs in your bucket, if you have people who try to pull you down when all you want is to heal and be better for yourself, to be happy, to live a fulfilled life, if you have people around you who don't want that for you, in order to heal, you're going to have to separate. Honestly, it's like ripping off a Band-Aid. If you can see that they're not going to change. if you know that you're not going to be invited to the family get-togethers anymore. It's a moment of dropping weight, dead weight. It's cathartic. It can be so freeing. Sometimes the step that we're the most afraid to take, I have goosebumps right now. Sometimes that step, that first one that we're afraid to take, is our favorite one after we've taken it. Don't be afraid to have a moment of solitude, especially when you need to heal, okay? And guys, the rest of our healing after this is the good part, all right? If you're in freeze and you get rid of what harms you, the healing, that is the fun part. That's the easy part. That's the part where, if you so choose, every single day from then on can be an upgrade, an improvement. This is the phase where I lovingly call it a spiritual awakening for me. I felt as though every single day, it felt like as if I was dying and being reborn. Every single day I sought to create beauty and happiness and love and regulation within my life, within my body, within my soul, and my mind. Guys, for not that long ago, just 14 months ago, I was nonverbal. I was shut down. If you've listened to my other episodes, I got to the woods and I literally collapsed on a futon, and I stayed there for several weeks. So the next piece is you're going to need to rest. The key to healing an overworked and overstressed nervous system is essentially like a detox. Picture an addict who needs to detox. I believe that we need to physically detox from fear, from fight or flight. So I can't be the only one who was shamed when I rested, yelled at when I rested, told I was lazy or unproductive when I rested. Well, rest is critical to our health. And not all rest happens at night when we're sleeping. Some rest happens on the day that we take off, where we say, you know what, I can't be present for other people. I can't go to work today. I think I'm just going to stay home and I'm going to take a bubble bath. And I'm going to make myself some tea. And I'm going to put my bunny ear slippers on and get cozy and do whatever it is that you find restful. Go sit in the woods and meditate. Yeah. All right. Y'all, I'm literally recording this. I'm dust mopping the floor. Even cleaning can be a form of rest. I find cleaning very meditative now. Allow yourself to create safety in everything you do. From now on, your life, instead of being terror, your entire existence, you should be dedicating it to being like an act of peace, an act of safety, an act of meditation and healing. Recovering from the freeze state takes effort. It's totally possible. I'm really thrilled that I was able to, now looking back on it, go through this process almost entirely alone and unassisted, because it gave me hope that I can pass on to others. I did this totally alone. That means you don't necessarily need a therapist. You don't necessarily, and I'm not a doctor, you don't necessarily need meds. I believe that we are regenerative, and that when left alone, when left to our own devices, we are able to go inward and return to self. And a human's natural state, our natural vibration is meant to be love. Love is a very high vibration. Whenever we are removed from love, down the vibratory scale with fear, sadness, anger, panic, worry, it takes us away from our nature. You know, just the way that a forest fire can come through and destroy a forest. And then after a few years later, you look back in amazement and you're like, wow, look at all the trees springing up out of the ash. It's the same way with you and your soul. You can be incinerated or feel that way. Be totally depleted. Feel as though you've crashed and burned. And if you give yourself the grace and the time and consistent pouring into yourself, re-regulating your nervous system, you will find that you are just like those trees that sprout back up. We are amazing beings. We can heal from the most horrific of things. So even if you find yourself in like some crazy low, some like, holy cow, I'm at rock bottom, like all of these things you described are exactly what I'm going through. I feel incapacitated. I'm not showing up for myself. It is more than depression. And that's how I was. And it felt like no one got it. And if that's you, then you are not alone. A lot of people out there are traumatized these days. You know, the news, 2020 happened. It's easy to get traumatized. And it might not be super easy to heal, but in a way, it kind of is. You just need to be in the right setting, the right circumstances. Guys, and so with that, if you are looking for guidance in getting out of this very real freeze and you feel unseen, your needs unmet through the avenues that you have gone through, I created a course for this, basically where I cataloged the baby steps, the how, the things that I did in the beginning that were super impactful for bringing me out of the mud, and that gave me hope and momentum. So if you are feeling overwhelmed, burdened, and you are looking for a little more guidance, I'll link in the show notes the courses. I'll put the course specifically that I've got for this, which is called Leave the Freeze. And before I let you go, I also represent a company that sells a nootropic drink called Axio. I believe I mentioned it in the course as well. Axio is, it was a life-changing drink that I started taking right around the time that I isolated in the woods. It's like your neurons start firing again. It felt like a hack, kind of. When I first found it, I was like, oh my gosh, like how many people don't know about these drinks? It felt like I was hydrating my brain, aerating my brain. It felt like I was giving my brain something it didn't know it was missing. So if you're looking for a cheat, a hack, if you're stuck in brain fog and sludge and concentration issues and memory issues, if you're struggling to get tasks done, I do highly, highly, highly recommend the Axio drink. So that will be linked in the show notes as well. And you guys, I hope that this podcast was helpful. I know it was a heavier one, but at the end, you know, I always want to impart hope and optimism for you. You are meant to learn from your rock bottoms. The alchemy process is, like I said, a slingshot. It's, okay, I am in a low. Now how can I move out of it? What can I learn from this process? And around here, I am all about quantum leaping, quantum jumping, timeline shifting. I don't believe that we're meant to suffer for a long time. Once we realize that something's wrong, alchemy, if you embrace mindset shifts and lifestyle changes, alchemy can be very quick too. So depending on where you're at, depending on your frame of mind, your state of your body, what you're able to handle at once. You can move through lows very quickly if you so choose. So you are not too lost. You're not too broken. Stay optimistic. A higher timeline is available for you. Just because you're frozen, lost in the sauce right now doesn't mean you have to stay there. I am living, breathing, walking proof, guys. I had fibromyalgia. I could barely move. I was bedridden, and now I'm up. I'm doing yoga. I'm building muscle. I lost 80 pounds. Guys, I share this because I want you to know it's really real. The healing in 14 months, I am two different people. You know, I lost an entire person worth of weight. I feel like a new person, and those autoimmune problems I was having, that body-wide pain, it's not there anymore. You're never too gone, all right? Seek your highest timeline. It's available. It's just step to the side and walk forward in a different path. 1% better every day. Each decision you make matters, you know, even your food choices. Maybe switching out a food choice in the moment doesn't feel so impactful, but if you do it every day or most of the time, then you change your life. So be happy, you guys. I hope that this helped who it was meant to help. Take what is meant for you, leave the rest for someone else to digest, and I will see you guys in the next one. I love you. Be happy. Stay safe and blessed, because you are more than you know.